Good afternoon. Today's Battle Rhythm Best Practice for Peer Support will be hosted by Jeanette Gillis. Jeanette is the director of the network at America's Warrior Partnership. The network provides local veteran-serving organizations with connections to national resources when a veteran's need cannot be met locally. To find out more about the network, please visit americaspartnership.org/the network. That's it for me, Jeanette. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I would like to welcome all of our branches to our Battle Rhythm today, as well as any 4-Star Alliance members, veteran service organizations, and guests. I'd also like to welcome today's guests. We've got Michael Askew. He is the Deputy Director for SAMHSA's Office of Recovery. We've got David Awadalla. He is the Public Health Analyst for SAMHSA's Office of Recovery. And we have Dan Arnold. Dan is the Director of Veteran Engagement, the Dwyer Program Lead at the Veterans One Stop of Western New York, which is in Buffalo. Through this session, please post your questions in the chat box so that we can answer them throughout the presentation and during the one-on-one and during the question and answer time. Also, please feel free to add any information that you would like to be passed along to the other attendees within the after action. We'll round off today's Battle Rhythm by breaking into collaborative discussion, and we'll end the session promptly at 3:15. Today's subject matter experts are going to start the presentation, and I'm excited to turn it over to Michael and David to introduce themselves and educate us about peer support and SAMHSA's efforts through the Office of Recovery.
Thank you, Allison, and everyone for joining in. Certainly excited to be on this platform with Battle Rhythm. I first want to say that the Office of Recovery was established early in the year of 2022 and finalized by hiring September of 2022 as well. I joined the office in May of 2023 last year, so I just finished my first year here. There's a staff of 14. Most of us is in lived or living experience in both substance use and mental health. Paolo Del Vecchio is the director of the Office of Recovery. And certainly a lot of the work that we do is really to advance recovery across the nation. One of the things that I'm excited about is being able to see the recovery community, wrap their arms around us with a lot of the distinguished opportunities that we've had thus far, and including them in the work that we do as well. The Office of Recovery is under the umbrella of the Office of the Assistant Secretary, Dr. Miriam Delphin-Rittman. And certainly we have really had an opportunity to, in the first year, do some exceptional work. What we recognize is that people who have been successful in the recovery process and it has a really inclination to want to help others experiencing that same situation of getting into the workforce. We have seen that the impact that peer support workers make is phenomenal. This is something that, when we look back at recovery, and it's not like clinical measures, but having a home, a job, family, a place in your community. Well, unfortunately, the system that we're living in, you have to be adequate. You have to have adequate finances to do that. So I think that definitely one of the barriers is not being paid a living wage when it comes to peer support. And I think providers need to understand the peer role more, something that we have been talking a lot for a long time now. So I think we're, having time to take a deeper look at that. And over time, whereas the evolution of peer roles sorts of a grassroots informal way of providing support to one another has been increased to a professional role. And all the work can't be on the peer specialist to make that transition, right? So you can't be like, okay, we're giving you a certification and a wage, and you go work in this place. Like the whole system has to change around that and have to accept people in the workplace. Because how can you be happy at work and no one understands what you're doing? You're not getting paid very well, and no one, feel like people want you there. In fact, you're doing some really remarkable work when it comes to peer supports, and it's really need to be recognized, especially when it comes to supervision, like I shared workforce development, wages, and so forth. So educating the public and the policymakers about peer, and we can talk a little bit more about the impact that peer workers make, and the workforce that we have started to see have evolved into such a rewarding, connection for people in recovery to really get engaged in and connecting with their community. Peer support is really vital when it comes to people, especially coming out of treatment systems and prison systems and really homelessness. And we can talk a little bit about respite and all the other different portals that you find, peer support. But, even in the hospitals and such, in jail. But one of the things I do want to specify is that peer support has really taken on a meaningful, gainful employment status for those that really, at the beginning, want to get back. And now as a career ladder, wanting to become more of a professional ladder to other, educational future endeavors. So I'll stop there, and I'll open it up to my colleague, David Awadalla.
So it's nice to be here. Okay, so I'm assuming the majority of the people here are familiar with our working definition of recovery, and I do want to say that our working definition of recovery was established in 2010, and this really serves as the foundation for the Office of Recovery's strategic plan and the current activities that we have in progress right now, and some of the accomplishments and products and resources that we developed last year as well. So for those who don't know, it's a process of change through which individuals improve their health and wellness, live self-directed lives, and strive to reach their full potential. And then we also have 4 pillars and 10 guiding principles that set the foundation for this working definition. So things like respect, hope, person-driven, multiple pathways. That's something that has really been a hot topic and is really at the forefront of people's minds as we've seen, worsening mental health and substance use crisis, and recognizing that everyone's pathway, including the pathway of peers, can look different. And there's the saying that there's as many pathways as there are people. And so everyone uses their own tools in their recovery. For some, that might be more of a harm reduction framework with incorporation of certain support groups, or maybe finding purpose, exercise, family. But everyone has their own kind of internal definition of their own recovery. But we also know that there's 4 pillars or dimensions that are critical to beginning the process of recovery. So health, home, community, and purpose. And without stable housing and a community, finding your own purpose, you're going to have a hard time, or at least I did with finding my own recovery. And those things really served as the core pillars for my own personal journey through recovery. And so if you're interested in checking out the working definition and some of the information that comes with it, you can pull up that with the QR code that's on the page. Michael, anything to add here?
No, you go right ahead, David. You're doing well.
All right. So we also have a national recovery agenda, aim, and purpose that guides our work. This was drafted as a team when we got together for the first time within the office. And so about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And we came up with this based on the needs of the nation and what we've heard from our community partners and our state partners, specifically tying that into the working definition of recovery. So what we came up with as a team was to forge partnerships to support all people, families, and communities impacted by mental health and/or substance use conditions to pursue recovery, be resilient, and achieve wellness. So a little bit about our history. In the fall of 2022 was when we were kind of unofficially officialized. it was announced that we were creating the Office of Recovery, but we still had some steps that we had to take in order to build out the team and come up with our goals and objectives and aim and purpose. And so we had this what was called the Recovery Now Summit, and it was a convening of about 150 state, local, and federal partners to help us figure that out. And it really served as the launching point for our strategic action plan and the objectives that I'm going to talk about in just a minute with Michael. And we did have an initial goal of evaluating and initiating policies, programs, and services with a recovery focus. But I do want to emphasize that the lived experience and living experience incorporation into our programs, especially things like our NOFOs, because a lot of our funding opportunities are cross-cutting in nature. And although they might sit in a certain center or have a specific primary focus, there is usually some sort of secondary involvement or incorporation of recovery. And so we are really striving to make sure that the voices of people with lived and living experience are at the forefront of our funding opportunities. Everything from our training and technical assistance grants and contracts, but also our block grants like SOAR funding, our substance use and recovery block grant, and then also our discretionary grant programs as well. We also have the 5 goals, which I mentioned. So inclusion, equity, peer services, social determinants, and wellness. And each of those goals kind of serves as a more overarching strategy. And then under each, we have specific objectives or initiatives that are, we tie them into one particular goal, but as I mentioned with a lot of the grant programs, they're cross-cutting in nature. So just because a objective falls under our peer services goal doesn't mean there's not an equity focus as well. So just a quick overview of our achievement. So we have done a lot of work in the couple of years that we've been around. So we hit the ground running with the development of the National Model Standards for Peer Support Certification. We're really, really proud of that document, and we were really, really proud of the contributions that our state and local partners played in the development. You know, I want to emphasize the voice of peers in that. The first thing we did was had a technical expert panel with peers across the nation, and we couldn't have developed it without them. We also updated the best practices for recovery housing. We published our NISDA recovery report. And then we've also convened quite a few gatherings with our state, local, tribal, and territorial partners. So we had a collegiate recovery dialogue, which include discussion between college students who had lived experience with substance use and or mental health, and then university or college administration, justice involved people in court and corrections panel, criminal justice dialogue. Michael was there with me for that one. And that was just an incredible couple of days. And we all know the role that peers play in the legal system. Housing First and Recovery Housing Dialogue. So we brought together members of the recovery housing and housing first communities to figure out how they can work together a little bit more efficiently and provide support to each other in essence. A digital recovery technical expert panel. And then we also had a few regional summits, a peer workforce summit and tribal recovery summit. Actually, before I move on, do you want to add anything else to that, Michael?
No, we can talk a little bit more about what we're doing this year with the meetings as well.
Yep, that's actually on the next slide. So
good.
I'll click through this. Michael, you can give a quick overview. So
yeah, so we, like David shared, we have been very busy with allowing inclusion with the recovering community to participate in a lot of our convenings from last year and once again this year. We have started to build on that momentum with already having the harm reduction and the intersection of harm reduction and recovery, which David took the lead on that just last week in Denver, Colorado, which we had a convening there where we invited organizations across the country to explore opportunities to expand collaboration and how to overcome barriers to such issues with harm reduction. We also had the Recovery and LGBTQ forum, which was out in California about 3 weeks ago, which was really a meeting also to really look at how the LGBT community and their peer leaders will explore pressing recovery needs and recommendations to support that community as well. We also looked at a few other meetings that we have already scheduled this year. Employment, which will be in collaboration with the Office of National Drug Control Policy to bring together employers, people in recovery states, and others to explore strategies to expand recovery-friendly workplaces, supported employment, and more. We also look to do period crisis respite, which we could talk a little bit in the breakouts, where this is becoming an emerging and growing model to assist with people that are responding to behavioral health crisis. And so this meeting will convene peer respite providers and payers to explore opportunities to bring these approaches to scale. On the screen, you see we posted a new technical assistance center, a national peer-run center called SPARK, which is SAMHSA's program to advance recovery knowledge. And so we're excited about this opportunity. Also, David has been working closely with CARS, and CARS is really being able to support the National Peer Run TA Center for Addiction Recovery Support with a $2 million grant that's available for submission to apply right now. I'm not sure, when is the date released and the date deadline, David, do you know?
Yeah, and before I say that, just to clarify, so Spark was on the previous slide. So Spark is already under operation. That is our Equity and Recovery TA Center. The one Michael was referring to, which is CARS, the Center for Addiction Recovery and Support, is currently out for application. So it is it's one award for $2 million with a possible extension up to 5 years for the program. And this is basically the next iteration of our Peer Recovery Center of Excellence, which just has a broader focus on the advancing of recovery and peer support services across a variety of settings. And we've actually significantly expanded the scope for that compared to the previous TA center, which was a little bit more narrow and focused on RCOs. This version is going to be focused on pretty much any organization or setting or environment where peer or recovery support services might be provided. That would include the criminal legal system, colleges and universities. It would include some of the more abstract recovery related settings, so recovery research, peer certification. So it's reflective of the increased funding amount as well. So
yes, and
yeah.
Thank you, David. And so as you see on the slide, David is adding some more information also with the Harm Reduction and Recovery Summit. There's a toolkit that SAMHSA has provided. Also, there's Recovery Ready Workplace Employment Summit that I just shared about, as well as the Recovery and Peer Workforce Summit coming up in August. And actually, let me just mention Recovery Month. Go back to that slide, David. Recovery Month, SAMHSA in this 34th year is celebrating Recovery Month, and we are actually in the process of a couple of great activities and events. One event is the Walk for Recovery, September 5th, which will be held in Washington, D.C. It's a national Walk for Recovery, which will start at the Freedom Plaza, 2 blocks from the White House, and it will walk down to the Washington Monument, where we will have a rally and celebrate recovery in Washington, D.C. The other is the Star Awards and Art Recognition, which will be the SAMHSA's Trailblazers Award Recognition event, where we will highlight 8 categories where we will identify a person that will be a recipient of a specific award in those 8 categories, whether it's Advocate of the Year or Youth Leader of the Year or Family Member of the Year or such. And with that event, we will have a Gallery of Hope, which will be an expression of art from the recovery community, from both the mental health and substance use communities, where you can submit art now up until, I think it's, don't quote me on the date, but I believe it's in the next couple of weeks is the deadline. But I will certainly make sure that link is placed in the chat. But also for Recovery Month, we have weekly themes, which will we be providing educational webinars and presentations for week 1, 2, 3, and 4, which will be home, health, purpose, and community. And we also are developing fact sheets for the Recovery Month and beyond. So more information to be added to our website once that website becomes available. Thank you, David. Back to you.
Yeah, and I just threw links to the Art of Recovery webpage, Recovery Month, and our Spark webpage in the chat. And then Allison asked what month is Recovery Month. That's September. Yeah, September 1st through the 30th.
Thank you.
All right, so just a quick overview of our best practices for recovery housing. I had mentioned that one of the first things we did as a team was update this document, which was long overdue. It was originally published in 2018. And so we basically made sure that all the information was reflective of the current standards related to recovery housing, to make sure that those were reflective of the needs of the different states across our country. And so the toolkit is essentially intended to serve as a tool for both state health authorities, but also governing bodies, providers, and operators for recovery housing programs that are looking to improve the health and wellness of their locality. And if you're kind of a partner in recovery housing, or if that's of interest to you, I really do recommend checking it out. It's a fantastic document. So our national model standards, this was I've never seen something move through the federal process so fast. And it's one of the reasons why is it came down from the president in his 2022 Unity Agenda. So we were really proud of the work that we did, not just the timing of it, but the quality of it, and the fact that we really did the best job that we could to reflect the voices of our communities in the national model standards. So they were developed to accelerate universal adoption and integration of peer certification standards across the peer workforce. And so I mentioned that technical expert panel, which included federal, state, tribal, and local expert partners across the peer workforce, which was step 1, essentially, in the process of development. And now we're actively working with our partners to develop strategies and programs that support the adoption and integration of these standards. And then also looking to find ways to advance the peer movement in some of the other non-traditional settings like court corrections and reentry, and then some of the other types of organizations that you might not see a lot of or enough peers. And
let me just mention that David was one of the key principal investigators with the national standards for peer certification. So just want to give a shout out to David for all the work and leadership that he provided for that to happen. Thank you, David, for your work.
Thank you, Michael. But I always reflect it back to the community partners that led the way, because if it wasn't for them, everything in the standards was essentially developed in partnership with those people, and the voices of people in recovery and family members as well served such a key role. So. Yeah, I'm very, very proud of them. So I appreciate that, Michael. So just to give a quick idea of what the standards are and how we kind of structure them. So our first standard is on maintaining authenticity in peer support. And so, one of the goals of peer certifications are to basically promote consistency and quality of the services that are being provided by the peers within a certain geographic area. So, it's like, let's say I live in Illinois right now. And so the state of Illinois, they're going to develop their standards based on the communities across Illinois, and try to have a set of standards that promote quality and consistency. And so one of the kind of key themes that we've heard is not all of the certifications address lived experience. And we know that lived experience or living experience is absolutely critical for the peer role. And that's what makes a peer, is having shared similarities in a story that someone else can relate to. And I know that was very important for me when I received peer services almost a decade ago, because without having that shared experience, I could never have related to the peers that I worked with. So one of the things that we developed for the standard on authenticity and lived experience, or the requirements, was that certified peers describe their lived experience related to a mental health and or substance use condition. And this could be standalone or co-occurring, because there are a lot of mental health and substance use peer certifications that are integrated, but also describe strategies utilized to address associated challenges. And so you'll notice that we don't say are in recovery or are working a certain type of program, because there are a lot of people who are in recovery that might not even identify with that term, that have had lived experience and pretty complex and sometimes severe challenges related to their mental health or substance use, but they might not identify as being in recovery, but that doesn't make them any less qualified to provide peer support. So as long as that experience with strategies that can be utilized to address challenges, whether those are harm reduction strategies, peer and recovery support services, shouldn't matter regarding obtaining someone's certification as a peer.
I think that's a good place to stop for now, David.
Yeah.
So we do have the Dwyer program that's going to present next, but certainly we can continue this discussion in the breakout.
Yeah, and
certainly bring the slides with us.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I'll say I have some resources at the end here, and so we will send out this PowerPoint and make sure that you all have access to them. So thank you for letting me know. I appreciate that, Michael. So, all right, back over to you guys.
Back over to you, Allison.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah, right away. I'm going to now go ahead and pass our presentation over to our next presenter, which is Dan Arnold from the Veteran One Stop. So Dan, you can go ahead and have the floor.
Thank you very much. And thanks for allowing me to speak today and share some of the stuff that we do here in Buffalo. Like they said, the Dwyer program. I don't know how many of y'all have heard of the Dwyer program. It's a New York State unique peer support for veterans and families. It's a pretty cool program. It came out about close around 10 years ago. It's named after Sergeant First Class Joseph P. Dwyer, who was an Afghan. He was deployed to Afghanistan a couple of times. He was an Army combat medic. He's got a famous picture of him carrying out a local national child out of a battlefield. But the sad part of the story is when he came home. He came back to New York, and he ran into some issues with isolation, using drugs and alcohol, and he had PTSD, and he didn't know how to cope or didn't know where to turn, and sadly he took his life. And his family got together with New York State politicians, and they didn't want that to happen again to any other soldiers, airmen, Marines, all of us, to to make sure that doesn't happen again. And they developed this Dwyer program, which is just really a fantastic thing. And I'm real proud to be part of that here in New York State, especially myself as I'm a retired Air Force guy. I was deployed numerous times in numerous locations, did a lot of fun stuff, a lot of cool stuff, and a lot of crappy stuff. But it comes with the job, and that's what we do. And that's why veterans, I really feel, are a little unique. And the peer support aspect needs to be unique towards them. What's great about the Dwyer program is every single county in New York State is authorized to have the program. The money has already been allocated to them. They just need to get with their politicians in their counties to make it happen. Lucky for us, out of the Veterans One Stop out of Buffalo, I run 5 different counties in New York, which I'm real happy to say, and I'm real proud to say, because I love the way we run our program. I think we have a little bit uniqueness that other counties may not be able to do, because I work with the Veterans One Stop. I have 5 peer support specialists who work for me in these 5 counties. I make sure the 5 counties that we're in, that I have a peer support specialist in those counties. That is, really important, that you have them embedded in those counties, because how are they going to work with the veterans from those counties and the uniqueness every county offers if they're not there living in that county? And that's one thing that I really make sure we do at all times with all 5 of our programs. The way we run our program, when you read about what the Dwyer program is all about, it's really about outreach. It's about finding veterans who are in their community, but they're isolated. They don't get out much. They keep to themselves. We have to find them, and that's really the hardest part of the program. And my peer specialists have to get out and about in the community, finding them and letting them know that we're here and we're here for them. And there's other veterans here, and there's a lot of support for them. Like I said, that's the hardest part, is the outreach part of it. So what we do is we don't stay in our offices. We do things out and about in the community, in all aspects and all areas of the community, of those counties that we're in. We just don't say, like in Buffalo, for example, it's Erie County is where Buffalo is. We just don't stay in Buffalo. There's so many other towns, and it's a pretty good sized county. We get all over the county, and we go all over the county. But we do work with the VAs that are in those counties, any clinics, like the substance abuse clinics, the PTSD clinics, the VAs themselves. We get involved with them. We're very involved with them, going out to them, tabling, let them know we're here. We do events with them. We'll take their veterans out and do stuff if they'll let us. Anything to get the word to them. We also work with local veteran organizations, the VFWs, the Posts, anybody who really will talk to us who has veterans in their groups. We'll get out and talk to them and let them know we're here. So like I said, outreach is a big part of it. But then it gets to where our peer support specialists really thrive, and that's at our events. The one thing that we do a little bit differently than what other Dwyer programs do that I know of, we don't do support groups per se. There's a lot of support groups out there. The VA has a lot of support groups. All the behavioral health clinics, they do support groups. Churches do support groups. There's a lot of them out there, and I didn't want to repeat and just keep doing the same thing that everybody else is doing. So what we do, and I found it very effective, is we do small group events. We'll go bowling. We'll have coffee chats. We'll go to dinner, breakfasts, or lunches. We go on hikes. We'll do game nights, whether it be board games or Dungeons and Dragons, whatever the veterans are into. We have art expression classes, which have been really great. We have photo group clubs. We have beekeeping clubs. We have horsemanship. We even have our own gym in the Buffalo office. So we do a lot of different types of things to attract veterans. Hopefully that will get them out of their isolation, have them try to come to us. And then once they come, they start meeting people, and that's when I've seen the difference in the veterans as they were coming. Once they come, they don't stop coming. We have a lot of fun. They really meet a lot of veterans. And like I said, they're very small groups. We usually don't go above 15 in our groups. And it's amazing the conversations that happen. Even without the peer support specialists, they're guiding the conversations at times. keeping certain things, off the table as much as they can. We don't want to trigger anybody. But a lot of the other conversations that happen are between veteran and veteran, who are just there at the event. And it's just amazing how they bond with each other. They make friendships and they go do things outside. So it's to me, that shows my program's working, because they're not sitting in their house anymore. They're coming to our stuff, but they're also doing other stuff on their own with other veterans. And that's how that really makes me feel good about knowing that the program is working. And I've seen it many, many, many times and working. Another way I consider my program successful is, like I said, with the outreach and the new veterans and trying to find more veterans, because it's all about getting them out of their isolation, out of their toxic environments, whatever it may be for them. My program, I want it to grow every single month. And I do track that, for the last 4 years that I've been running the peer support. I'm proud to say that every single month, our membership, I call it, veterans and family members who've come to an event, it grows every single month. And that's how I know that we're reaching more and more people. And sadly, there's still a lot more people to reach. There's probably, in those 5 counties that I run the program for, there's probably close to 100,000 veterans, give or take. And I probably reached maybe 5,000 over the last 4 years. So there's a lot more out there. A lot of them think they don't need peer support, or they don't need to hang out. But I always tell those ones, hey, come out and hang out with us anyways, because you can be that one person to talk to another veteran, or you may be able to, relate to another veteran that maybe I can't, or my other partner may not be able to, and you can make the difference. So I always tell all veterans to come. Some of the training that my guys we require them to get is in New York State. It's through the Academy of Peer Services. They have a New York State peer support certification. We're required to have that. We do the SAVE training, and then we also do the mental health first aid training. Those are the minimum requirements that we have for our peer support specialists. Another thing that makes our program a little bit unique, as I sort of mentioned it a little bit in the beginning, is with me working as a director of the Veterans One Stop. It really helps having support for when my peer support guys are out, creating relationships with the veterans we're meeting at the events, and we're meeting out at outreach stuff. We're not the experts in everything. We can't be the experts in everything. So in the Veterans One Stop, we have veteran housing, which is a huge, the homelessness program, SSVF. It's a huge federal grant. There should never be a homeless veteran, and there shouldn't be. There's plenty of resources out there for those veterans. We also have the Staff Sergeant Fox grant, which is a suicide prevention program through the VA, which is another huge grant that there's tons of resources there for veterans who qualify for that. And we have case managers. We have case managers who will help veterans, get almost anything that they need. If there's any assistance, whether they need health benefits, 214s, financial counseling, legal counseling. We have people who can arrange that all for them. And we even have an employment specialist to help them get a job and keep a job. Especially with the housingness, with the homelessness, we get them into a home. We want to make sure they have wraparound services to maintain those homes. And then peer support is a big part of all those programs. It goes both ways. People who come to us for our homelessness program, or they come to us for our Staff Sergeant Fox program. If those case managers are dealing with them and they go, hey, peer support might be a good thing for you, they refer them over to us. And then the same thing happens on our side when we meet people out at our events and whenever we're out and about in the community and we realize, hey, they need some assistance on stuff, we refer them back over to those clinics or to those services. And it's great because we're all in the same roof. We all work together, and the success has been tremendous since we've started these programs, full blown getting into them. And it's just been fantastic how it all works together. And I'm really proud of the way our program is working, because we are seeing a difference in the improvement of quality of life for our veterans in this area. And that's us in a nutshell, really. It seems like we do a lot more than what I just talked about, but it's all good stuff. To answer that, there's supposed to be 62 programs in New York State, one for each county. I can't speak from the state level if every single one of those counties actually has an active program or not. But I know for sure 5 of them do because I run them. But there's a bunch. There's probably about that I have contacts with, probably about 48 that I know of. But there probably are. I hope that there are 62 of them because every county does deserve it.
Excellent. Jeanette, I'm going to go ahead and have you come in for a second and thank all our presenters and see if there's any questions.
All right. Well, I would like to thank our presenters today. A thank you to Michael and David, as well as to Dan for their informative presentations. And I'd like to thank all of you for collaborating and sharing and being here with us. America's Warrior Partnership's ultimate goal is to improve the quality of life for all veterans and to end veteran suicide by empowering local communities to know all of their veterans and to serve them holistically before a crisis occurs. America's Warrior Partnership's model community integration amplifies local efforts by bringing community-serving organizations together to bridge the gaps in available services and by connecting local groups to national resources. We believe that communities are best equipped to improve the lives of their veterans, and we hope today's Battle Rhythm provided you with powerful insights, best practices, new partners, and the tools to do just that. Our next Battle Rhythm will be on July 8th, where we will focus on the title will be Strengthen Warriors' Resistance with Outdoor Rehabilitation and Recreation. So that should be a really interesting one, and we hope that you can all attend. Before we wrap up, I want to let you know that we have our annual symposium. We'll be holding it this year in Washington, D.C., beginning on August 8th. If you are interested in that, tickets are still on sale. You can find that and more information on our website. Thank you so much. Hope to see you either next month or maybe even at the symposium. Hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye.
Yep.
Thanks for having us, everyone. Bye.
Yeah. Thanks for coming. Have a much more improved rest of your Monday.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.